Hello and welcome to Japan Lyric Room. In this program, we explore the lyrics of Japanese songs, delivering clear explanations of their meanings and unique cultural backgrounds. Please note that while the voices and illustrations in this video are AI-generated, the project itself is run by two Japanese creators living in Japan. The script is carefully researched and written by us to provide original explanations.
It is so great to be here for this one, honestly.
Yeah, I'm super excited. So, I want you to imagine that you're walking down just a typical Japanese street back in 2020.
Right, just a totally normal day.
Exactly. And you pull out this really basic personal digital camera, the kind you just have in your bag. You put on a pair of cheap, like 100 yen fake glasses from a discount shop, and you just start filming a music video.
With absolutely zero budget, I might add.
Zero budget. Yeah, you and your friends just dancing on the sidewalk, acting like these sophisticated grown-ups, completely unbothered by anyone watching you.
Which takes a lot of confidence, frankly.
Oh, totally. But then, fast forward 3 years, and that exact same grassroots concept just explodes. It turns into this massive global phenomenon, racking up like over 3.3 billion views on TikTok.
3 billion. That's just a staggering number to even think about.
It really is. So today, we are exploring the lyrics behind that incredible Cinderella story, the song Otonablue by the group ATARASHII GAKKO.
Yeah, and it really is an unprecedented trajectory for an indie track. And, what makes it so captivating is that the song itself is a massive contradiction.
Right.
You have this very specific blend of Showa Kayo, which, for those who don't know, is that lush, dramatic, brass-heavy Japanese pop music from the 1970s and 80s, mixed seamlessly with this modern, thumping electro-disco produced by the track maker yonkey.
Yeah, and just to add to that, the Showa Kayo style is essentially the music that the performers' parents, or even their grandparents, would have been listening to during Japan's economic boom.
Exactly. It's incredibly nostalgic.
It is. To me, the slow burn success of this track feels almost like walking into a thrift store, right? And finding a hidden, dusty vintage jacket in the very back, putting it on. And then suddenly, years later, that exact jacket becomes the hottest global fashion trend.
Oh, I love that analogy. That hits the nail on the head.
Thanks. But it really makes you wonder, why did this specific blend of 70s and 80s retro pop and modern disco strike such a massive chord with millions of people today?
Well, to answer that, before we even look at a single lyric, we really have to understand the visual and vocal context of the performers.
Right. The aesthetic is huge here.
It sets the entire stage. If you watch them perform, you see a group of young women wearing traditional Japanese sailor-style school uniforms and armbands. And if you grew up in Japan, or even if you just know a bit about the culture, you know that the school uniform is a deeply ingrained symbol of strict discipline.
It represents conformity.
Completely. It is a garment quite literally designed to erase individuality so that everyone just, falls into line.
But the irony is, they're wearing these ultimate symbols of compliance while doing the exact opposite of complying, right?
Exactly.
Like they are performing these highly avant-garde, almost chaotic routines like that viral head-bobbing dance, and they're deliberately making these funny, exaggerated faces right at the camera.
And that is the visual irony that powers the entire project. They take the uniform and they completely subvert its meaning.
Yeah, it becomes their message that you don't need to fit into a mold.
Precisely. They call the uniform their battle gear for lifelong youth. By doing that, they've managed to become this instantly recognizable, cool Japan icon globally, but entirely on their own rebellious terms.
And, that visual irony pairs so perfectly with the vocals.
Oh, the vocals are incredible.
Right. It's impossible to ignore the main vocalist, Suzuka. She has this incredibly distinct, thick, powerful style. She intentionally channeled Akiko Wada, who is widely known as the queen of Japanese soul.
Which is such a brilliant contrast.
It is. You're looking at this young girl in a modest school uniform, but you're hearing the voice of a commanding, seasoned adult woman. It gives this song a really thick, powerful flavor right out of the gate.
Yeah, and the underdog story just amplifies all of that. I mean, in 2020, they had no budget. They were just filming themselves in town on personal digital cameras, acting like grown-ups.
Just purely driven by creativity.
Exactly. And 3 years later, that exact unpolished, authentic energy fueled their viral explosion. It led to an official music video and major awards, like the Excellent Work Award at the Japan Record Awards.
It's amazing. Well, now that we can clearly picture their rebellious retro armor, let's explore how that armor actually sounds when we look at the lyrics.
Let's do it.
So listen to how they project this persona in the very first lines of the song. I'm going to read the English translation and then read the exact cultural nuance. So here's phrase 1. translation is luring in weak men with sweet nectar. And the cultural nuances, luring in spineless, indecisive men and mesmerizing them with a sweet nectar dangerously so potent it steals their breath away.
There's just so much flavor in that line. We need to look at a couple of essential words establishing the atmosphere here.
Okay, lay it on me.
First, we have yawa, which refers to weak, indecisive, easily manipulated men, and then amaimitsu, meaning sweet nectar.
Right, which sounds very retro.
It is. If you listen to 70s and 80s Japanese pop, this imagery is a classic trope. It's the absolute archetype of the femme fatale, the alluring, slightly dangerous villainess who twists men around her little finger.
Oh, wow.
But what is actually happening here is a concept called sonobi, which literally translates to standing on your tiptoes or doing a stretch.
Basically, stretching yourself to appear taller or older than you really are.
Precisely. You have a teenager who likely hasn't even experienced real love yet, desperately trying to project this image of a seasoned, dangerous woman.
You know, whenever I hear this line, I always think of like a little kid putting on their mom's oversized high heels.
Oh, that is the perfect image.
Right. They're stomping around the living room, trying their absolute hardest to look intimidating. But if you look closely, you can clearly see them wobbling with every single step.
And what makes that wobble so compelling is that the listener is completely in on the joke.
Yeah, we see the wobble.
Exactly. The singer is using these heavy, dramatic metaphors to build a massive facade of maturity. But the vulnerability hiding right underneath it, the fact that it's just a facade, is what really gives the song its charm.
Well, that metaphorical wobble really comes into focus when you hear how she tries to command the room. She uses a fascinating clash of vocabulary. Let's look at phrase 2. This translates to, I know you want this body that makes you do a double take. And the cultural nuance is, I know exactly what you want. You desire this body, the very one that forced you to turn back and take a second look.
It's such a bold statement.
It is. And I was looking closely at the original Japanese lyrics for this, and I noticed something really interesting about the word karata, which means body. She didn't use the standard everyday character for body.
Right. That is a very sharp observation. No, she didn't.
She used a much more complex one.
Yeah, she used a specific character that carries a very heavy classical tone. It's not the anatomical, everyday word you'd use at a doctor's office. In traditional Japanese literature and pop, it's used to describe profound physical beauty, sensuality, and an almost weighty adult presence.
And that is what makes this lyric so incredibly brilliant. She pairs that heavy, sensual word with the phrase nidomi suru.
Which just means doing a comical double take.
Exactly. Like when you see someone trip on the sidewalk and you quickly look back, it's a cartoonish action. So she's balancing this goofy, cartoonish imagery right up against deeply traditional sensuality. It perfectly emphasizes how she controls the gaze of others.
It shows she is highly aware of the attention she's receiving. But it's important to remember, she isn't just commanding this attention in a vacuum. The environment around her is actively reacting to her.
Right.
And it is not a comfortable environment at all.
No, it's incredibly oppressive. Which brings us right into the physical setting of the track. Let's listen to phrase 3. Translating to, walking alone in the sweaty city, lewd gazes stick to me. And the cultural nuances. Walking alone through the humid, sweating city streets, vulgar and lewd gazes stick to my body.
If you have ever visited a major Japanese city in the dead of summer, you know exactly what asabamumachi implies.
Oh, the humidity is legendary.
It really is. It's this sweltering, thick, inescapable humidity. You start sweating the moment you step outside. And in this incredibly uncomfortable atmosphere, she feels midara nashitsun, which means lewd, vulgar gazes from the adults around her.
Just staring at her.
Yeah. And the key word here is karamitsuku, which means tangling or sticking to something.
That is such a visceral choice of words. I mean, it personifies the male gaze, right?
It does, very effectively.
Instead of just a look, it turns the gaze into a physical, sticky entity that actually wraps around her body. It makes me think of how summer humidity literally sticks your clothes to your skin. The metaphor of a sticky gaze makes it feel like she's walking through a dense forest of invisible spider webs. It's kind of gross.
It is entirely gross and invasive, but notice how she handles it.
Yeah, how does she react?
Well, she doesn't shrink away from the spider webs. She doesn't become a passive victim of this gaze. She actually takes that gross energy, scoops it up, and incorporates it into her performance. She weaponizes the attention.
So she wears it almost like a costume. But, you know, wearing that heavy, sticky armor of adulthood while constantly navigating the male gaze, That has to eventually take a psychological toll.
Oh, it's completely exhausting.
Right. And this brings us to the moment where her mature facade finally starts to crack, and her true age bleeds through. Here's phrase 4.
This translates to, not later, I want it right now, burning for adult love. And the cultural nuances, don't tell me sometime later, brush me off. I want to experience real adult love right this second.
We really need to look at the phrase sono uchi here. This is a very specific, uniquely Japanese social tool.
Really? How so?
Well, it translates roughly to sometime later or someday. It's an ambiguous rejection, like a polite brush-off that adults use to smoothly dodge a situation without flat-out saying no.
Okay.
It's basically that condescending pat on the head you give a child when they ask for something they can't have.
Which has to be completely infuriating to a teenager, because it denies her the very maturity she's trying so hard to project. The adult using sono uchi is essentially saying, you're still just a kid.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So the singer fiercely rejects this cowardly dodging. She fires back with imasugu ga ii no, which means I want it right now. She isn't looking for casual encounters. She is burning for real, honest adult love.
I have to challenge that logic a little, though, because there is this stunning paradox embedded right there in her reaction.
Let's hear it.
Well, she's passionately claiming she wants this sophisticated adult love. But her reaction to being told to wait, I want it right now, is actually the most childlike, impatient thing she has said in the entire song. Isn't that deeply ironic?
It is the ultimate irony of the song. You nailed it. It's the raw impatience of youth wrapped up in the vocabulary of adulthood.
So she's throwing a tantrum for maturity.
Yeah. She thinks she's demanding something mature, but the way she demands it reveals exactly how young she really is. And this paradox demanding adult experiences with childlike impatience brings us directly to the deep psychological core of the lyrics.
Okay, let's see how she rationalizes that feeling in phrase 5, which translates to, only my heart races ahead, acting like an adult while still a green bud. And the cultural nuance is, my heart keeps racing far ahead of my body, acting like an adult while still trapped inside a tightly closed green bud.
This is perhaps the most introspective, honest line in the entire track.
It feels very vulnerable.
It does. Sakibashiru describes the feeling of the heart racing completely out of control, leaving the physical body and reality behind. And then she uses the metaphor of the oitsubomi, the green bud.
What does that symbolize?
In traditional Japanese poetry, a green bud is a symbol of profound youth and inexperience. It's something tightly closed that is simply not ready to bloom yet, no matter how much it wants to.
But the true stroke of genius here is the verb she uses at the very end, isn't it?
Yes. The double meaning here is phenomenal. The Japanese verb for acting like an adult is otonaburu. Phonetically, when you say it out loud, it sounds exactly like the English title of the song, Otonablue.
Oh, wow. That is so clever.
Right, so she is acting like an adult, but by using this specific word, she reveals that she's hyper-aware, she's just faking it. She knows, deep down, she is still just a green bud.
It takes a staggering level of self-awareness to admit that. And knowing she's just a green bud, faking her way through the city, leads to a really painful realization.
Yeah, it creates a lot of friction.
She suddenly recognizes the massive gap between how she looks and how she feels. Listen to phrase 6, translating to, more than my looks, my remaining innocent feelings just spin their wheels. And the cultural nuance is, I long for an adult romance, but despite my mature appearance, my innocent, childlike emotions keep spinning their wheels in vain.
The lyrics here establish a direct clash between two states of being. Mitame refers to her perfectly crafted outer appearance.
Like the bold makeup and the uniform worn like armor.
Right, but underneath all of that, she realizes she still holds on to adokanai feelings. Adokanai means innocent, pure, and completely untainted.
Which doesn't really match the femme fatale vibe.
Not at all. This pure heart is fundamentally incompatible with the cynical act she's trying to pull off. Because you just can't fake the experience of the heart.
Yeah, exactly.
And because of this lingering innocence, she ends up experiencing what she calls karamawaru, translates to spinning your wheels in vain.
You know, it's exactly like sitting in a high-performance sports car and slamming your foot on the gas pedal while the transmission is completely stuck in neutral.
That's a great way to visualize it.
Right, there's all this loud, powerful, aggressive noise, which is her mature appearance and bold attitude, but the car itself isn't actually moving an inch forward. The innocent heart doesn't know how to engage the gears.
The gears simply cannot catch. And so the natural question becomes, if her gears are stuck in neutral and she's just making a lot of noise, where does she ultimately end up?
Which leads us to the finale of the song. Let's see where the journey takes her in phrase 7. This translates to chasing an unseen love path, acting like an adult again. And the final cultural nuance is desperately chasing after a mature love path I have never even seen, only to end up acting like an adult and falling into those adult blues once again.
The finale really ties all of these complex themes together nicely. Mata Minakoji represents a fantasized, unseen path of love.
So she's basically chasing a ghost.
She is. She's chasing an ideal of romance that she doesn't actually comprehend yet. And the final line, Mata Otonaburu, cements that brilliant double meaning we discussed earlier.
The Otonablues.
Right. It means acting like an adult again, and falling into the melancholy of the adult blues.
So she is basically stuck in an endless loop. She puts on the armor, walks out into the sticky gaze of the city, realizes she is just a green bud spinning her wheels, feels the blues, and then wakes up the next day to do it all over again.
It is an exhausting, endless loop. However, we really can't ignore the profound empowerment hidden within this cycle.
Empowerment? How so?
Well, by taking the heavy, oppressive adult gaze and turning it into a literal plaything through this upbeat, retro disco pop music, these young women fundamentally transform themselves.
Oh, I see. They flip the script entirely.
They do. They're no longer just passive objects to be consumed by society or crushed by the expectations of the uniform. They have elevated themselves to become the main characters who absolutely dominate the stage. They own their awkwardness.
They own the wobble.
Exactly. They own the wobble.
That is such a powerful transformation. And, it leaves you with a really provocative thought to mull over when the music finally stops.
Yeah, it really makes you think.
As we listen to this song about a teenager faking maturity and wearing armor to protect herself in the humid city, it makes you reflect on your own life. How often do you, even as an actual adult, put on your own metaphorical armor before you walk out the door?
We probably do it more than we'd like to admit.
Right. How often do you fake your confidence or hide your own innocent feelings just to survive society's heavy expectations? Are we all, regardless of our age, just spinning our wheels in neutral? Maybe we are all, in some small way, stuck in our own endless loop of the Otonablues.
That is a fascinating way to look at it.
Thank you so much for listening. We feature various Japanese songs and provide detailed explanations on our website. Please check the link in the description to explore more. If you enjoyed this program, please subscribe to our channel and let us know your thoughts or song requests in the comments. See you next time. This was Japan Lyric Room.